Today, I'm joined by Sabina Nawaz. Sabina is an elite executive coach who advises C-level executives and teams at Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, nonprofits, and academic institutions around the world. Sabina routinely gives speeches and teaches faculty at Northeastern and Drexel universities. During her 14-year tenure at Microsoft, she went from managing software development teams to leading the company's executive development and succession planning efforts for over 11,000 managers and nearly 1,000 executives, advising Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer directly. She is the author of You're the Boss, Becoming the Manager You Want to Be and Others Need, where she provides time-tested strategies to help managers thrive and anticipate the unavoidable hazards of leadership without changing who they are. I'm excited to have her on the show to learn from her expertise. So, Sabina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Excited to be here.
Oh, it's good to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about what you've learned over the years. You've been involved with leadership for a long time. That's kind of what I wanted to start off with. You've been coaching leaders. You were part of Microsoft. You've seen a lot of top leaders and top organizations. Are there some patterns that you've noticed that separates maybe the great managers from those that struggle?
Oh, absolutely, John. And but the patterns are not necessarily separating one person from another. It's separating two sides of us. I don't believe that there are any purely good managers or purely bad managers. They're both us. We're humans. And one of the ways this book came about was me having 12,000 pages of verbatim comments when I interview the about a dozen colleagues of the executive I'm coaching. What do they do well? Where do they struggle? And people spill the beans on their boss, and then I collect all that and analyze those patterns that became the backbone of this book.
Wow.
A key piece of that, John, is how you manage the intersection of pressure and power.
Mm.
When we are at our best selves, we know how to harness that pressure and turn that proverbial coal into diamonds. And when we're not at our best selves, that pressure shows up in ways that causes employees to watch video games or, as
Mm.
research shows, even deliberately make mistakes. Another reason I wrote this book is because I was in that myself. I went from best boss ever to the boss from hell
Mm.
because of how I shifted under pressure. And nobody tells you because you're in a position of power.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think you're right. Nobody tells you because you are the boss, and so
Yeah.
how you're reacting to different situations, it can be very problematic for followers. But I think you kind of touched on something. It's power and pressure. These are two things. One is you're given authority, right? But then you're dealing with maybe new pressures that you hadn't dealt with as an individual contributor, maybe, or a manager at a lower level. Um, how should bosses? I mean, what's the challenge with pressure, and how should new managers or managers that have been doing it for a while, how should they deal with the pressures of the job?
Mm, mm. I talk about 5 common pressure pitfalls. Let's talk about the top one or two. Pressure, we like to say power corrupts. It's actually pressure that corrupts.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is under pressure, I'm going to raise my voice. I'm going to be harsher than necessary. Now that sends everybody else's pressure gauges redlining. And then they're not doing their work because they're distracted by how you've just treated them. And so it starts this vicious cycle. And it affects everyone, bosses and employees alike, and it becomes this silent corrupter.
Mm.
One of the most common ways that managers fall into a pressure pitfall is by becoming what I call a sole provider. That's SOLE, thinking, I am the only one who. And this sole provider is a particularly dangerous trap because it is cloaked in nobility and good intentions. But when left unmanaged, it can turn our good intentions into destructive habits. I know for me, pressure didn't just squeeze my time, it squeezed out my humanity. I started micromanaging. I told myself I don't have time to give detailed explanations, let alone repeat them. People would come to my office and I'd be like, 10 fingers on the keyboard looking over my shoulder, indicating you're less important than me, spit it out, move on. And the worst part is I thought I was being efficient,
Mm,
right? Until finally somebody was brave enough to tell me that that was not exactly how that was coming across. So this sole provider can take many forms. I could be a caretaker where I say, oh, my team is under a lot of pressure as well. This is a particularly busy time of year. I'll just jump in and rescue them. Not realizing that by jumping in and rescuing them over and over, I'm not building their own skill and capacity to do this, and I'm
mm,
setting up a perpetual motion machine. And did they ask to be rescued? They might go, gosh, he's just hogging all the limelight every time there's an opportunity. Instead of me saying, oh, I don't want you to look stupid in front of the big boss,
mm.
right? So you could be the caretaker as a sole provider. You could also be the whack-a-mole champ, the carnival game where all these plastic moles pop up and you've got the rubber mallet and you're hitting
Yeah,
them. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where I wish I had a rubber mallet to strike things, but this is the okay, I'm just going to get it done because I have this adrenaline rush, this dopamine fix
yeah.
of scratching things off my to-do list, writing it even though it's done and scratching it out. And so I forget that there are other people who can take on some of that job because I've got so caught up in that whack-a-mole nature. I could be a straight A student where I'm taking on and I'm laboring over should this be a colon or a semicolon? Or I could be a Flash, the person who gets things done very quickly, named after that DC Comics character. Guilty. And so this sole provider trap that we fall into adds to existing pressure for ourselves and other people, and it short circuits our relationships.
Yeah, I certainly can recognize myself in some of what you're talking about, especially as a, because I run my own manufacturing company that I founded 10 years ago. And so there are days where I feel like I'm the sole provider. And because kind of I am, I mean, it's my business. So,
Yes.
payroll, customers are coming short with payments, payroll is coming up, you can feel that pressure that is intense to be able to deliver because you care for your people, you care about the business, you care, you maybe you care so much that you jump into things that maybe I shouldn't be jumping into, or I worry, or I change my behaviors based on that. So it sounds like, so I definitely see myself in what you described. And how, I mean, how can leaders recognize that they're falling into that trap?
Mm, mm. They to recognize that you're falling into sole provider is actually what where John you just went, which
Yeah,
is what do you say to yourself to justify the behavior and
yeah,
what do you do? So for example, that oh, this is a particularly bad time of year, whenever you hear that phrase, pause for a moment. Is there any time of year that's not particularly bad?
yeah,
Right.
right.
So you could take the narrative you're telling yourself or the action you're doing and come up with two alternate narratives. So if it's a caretaker and this is a bad time of year, or the my team member is under a lot of pressure, I'm going to just jump in and help them. That's one narrative. Another narrative might be I am robbing them of an opportunity to showcase their work to senior authority figures.
Mm,
A third narrative could be they're not learning how to do this and getting feedback on what's missing because
mm,
I am jumping in before they can even do a first draft.
yeah,
Now, once I have different narratives, see, the narrative we play in our head informs what action we're going to take.
yeah,
If my narrative is, oh, poor them, then I'm going to jump in and rescue even when that's not needed. If the narrative is they need some more visibility, I might jump in, but I might jump in as a coach
mm.
and help them so that also it reduces some of that dependency. It breaks the tie that they have with me.
It's very interesting because when I'm hearing you talk about it, I'm thinking about, different leadership styles and ideas that have been kicked around over the years, but servant leadership is one that I think about. And the servant leadership is sort of serving the people, right? And you're making sure they have everything they need, and that, and I can see that if you say, well, I'm, I'm being a good servant leader by taking on the roles of other people. But the truth of the matter is, you never get them to develop if you don't give them those opportunities. So I could see one of the excuses you could be making is, well, I'm being a good servant leader by taking on the actions of others.
Yes, 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 exactly, John. You've just nailed it. Because look, we're rarely the villains in our own story.
Right,
And everyone around you is going to let you believe that
right,
because nobody wants to tell the person in the position of power what they don't want to hear. So
right,
they're going to go, yes, boss, that's great. Meanwhile, they're starting a secret group chat about your management habits.
right, right.
So yes, and here's the other thing. I do want to be clear that this is not always bad.
Mm,
So if you think about the caretaker, the whack-a-mole, the flash, the straight A student, who doesn't want to take care of their people? Who doesn't want to produce high quality work, do it fast, and get a lot done? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. So this is not an always or never thing. It's not a binary. It is when is it that it's time to bring in other people or grow them or coach them? When is it that it's actually increasing pressure, even though the story you're telling yourself is that it's going to decrease pressure?
mm. I like that. That's something really. I think it's important to hear that because I think a lot of times we say, "Well, we're doing it to help," and it's like maybe we're not.
Yeah,
Maybe it's creating a
yeah.
problem for sure. So let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about new managers. So one of the things you say is that being promoted could be the riskiest time in your career, and I think that's really interesting to hear that. Why is that, and what can new managers do to
Mhm,
avoid crashing and
mhm,
burning during that transition? Because
mhm.
it's a pretty big deal when you get into management.
Yes, there's an entire chapter in You're the Boss called New Level, New Rules. That is, if you come in doing and saying the things exactly the way you used to do and say them, it's going to look different from the perspective of the people whose necks are craning up now. It's going to look less charitable,
Mm.
less noble. So imagine, actually, here are a few steps, John. Step number one is identify a key superpower of yours, particularly one that may have gotten you promoted. And I'd love to ask you that question if you're willing to play. What would you say is a key superpower of yours?
I would say, a high level of follow through, getting things done. So, meeting commitments probably.
You meet commitments. Any
Yeah.
others?
Uh, I think the ability to get people who are on opposite sides of the aisle to
Mm,
agree. And so
wonderful.
finding compromise and getting people to find a solution to a
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
So finding compromise and common ground, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, great. So imagine now you get promoted, you're in a large organization, you get promoted to the next step. How might the people, so this is step number two, instead of looking at it from your perspective, so these are my two superpowers that have gotten me here, meeting commitments with huge reliability and helping people find common ground and a way to move forward. People who have less power than you, how else might that look to them?
Yeah, I think they might. Yeah, and I've had feedback to that. Like, you know, for as far as getting things done on time, it's like that all he cares about is getting things done, right? And
Yes.
he doesn't care about us; he cares about the deadline, right?
Yes.
So that
Yes.
becomes the priority versus that, and maybe the idea of compromise or finding common ground is that, oh, he gives up all the time, or he's not protecting our interests. He's listening to the other group, or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You nailed it. So
yeah,
that's step number two is actually name certain people. Could be a direct report, could be a skip level, could be a colleague's direct report, could be a new hire. People who have less stature, less power than you, what will it look like? So, in your case of meeting the deadline, he doesn't care about the humans, he just cares about another widget being placed on that assembly line in the manufacturing plant.
right,
Or potentially, it could be he doesn't care about quality, he cares about meeting the deadline.
right, exactly.
Or he doesn't understand operational details.
Yeah,
He's only thinking about getting it done, right? You're finding middle ground. He's not decisive. He doesn't have our back, as you said.
yeah.
It takes him too long to come to decisions, or maybe even he's too political. He's
Mm,
manipulative. These are words that are not going to come to you upward, But you can imagine these are things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you get promoted, step number one, identify the things you think got you promoted. Step number two, list out what that might look like from a perspective of several people, five different people who are in positions of lower power than you.
Mm,
And then step number three is how do you make an and out of it? So, how can I be attentive to deadlines and attentive to people? Because I know that both these things need to be done. It's not an either or.
mm.
And now that can design my next step.
I think it's fascinating. I wonder how many new managers get that training or brought or get that information, because I think one of the things I notice is that I was in corporate for 22 years. So what we would do is we promote great individual contributors to
Yes.
managers. We would
Yes.
provide no training.
Yeah.
And then maybe 4 or 5, if they survive 4 or 5 years, then they would get to their first, leadership training or management training if they
Yeah.
were lucky, right? So it was basically learn while you burn, as I used to call it. Like you just get
Wow.
promoted and sort of just you figure it out on your own. So just what you just said, that's such a helpful message for young managers to think through these things, because I oftentimes what I find with young managers, they go back to their comfort zone, and just what you're talking about, their past practice, what got me here, that's my comfort zone. And so great engineers, right, become the engineering manager, and they like to sometimes go back to doing engineering work, and that's the last thing we want you to do as the engineering manager, right?
I love it. I love your term, learn while you burn. I'm going to have to borrow that phrase,
Sure, don't
John,
steal it.
because it's so, so true. And
Yeah,
here's the thing, because I'm not getting trained, because I don't have this muscle strength, it's a whole new world. What is this
right,
foreign territory I'm in? I'm now under pressure to perform in something I don't know. And in the past,
right.
I've known everything. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to my default of what's comfortable.
Mm.
That comfort zone is coming from a place of deep discomfort.
Right, right.
Funny thing happened to me as I wrote this book. You and I were talking in the green room about writing books. Something happened that I hadn't anticipated, which is three separate colleagues approached me after they read the book. And they said, you got to create a manager training program out of this.
Mm.
And I said, really? I'm kind of busy with my book PR and my podcasts and
Yeah.
everything. Who has time for that? And they said, I want to be trained in this and I
Mm.
want to take it to companies. So, long story short, now I have a team that's actually trained in a whole curriculum from brand new manager to executive, using the steps in the book to say, can we do this for you in a systematic, methodical manner so you can start to open your eyes? Once the bubblies to celebrate your promotions are
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
let's talk about how everybody else sees you.
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective. Yeah. The shift the perspective to just what the way you're thinking about yourself to what do your people think of you? Shift that
Exactly.
perspective a little bit. No, that's great. That's good to hear, because I think it's needed more now more than ever, because I think we under equip our managers, in especially in corporate, even small companies. I lead a small company now, and I think I probably under equip my managers too.
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
budgets are smaller than the big companies, as well.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
One of your key messages that you talk about in the book is also managing or leading yourself first, and I love that idea and that concept. So, what does it look
Mhm.
like in practice, especially for like maybe managers who are already feeling a lot of pressure? They feel stretched. How can they lead themselves first, or what does that look like?
Hmm. We tell ourselves these very, again, justifiable stories about our own self-care or paying attention to ourselves because we say, oh, yeah, yeah, I'll get to that. Or who has
Yeah,
time for it? I'm under so much pressure.
yeah.
This happened to me about, I want to say 15 years ago. I was exhausted. Young kids, mom with Alzheimer's, lots of travel, ton of pressure. And I was feeling really exhausted. Finally, I thought something must be wrong with me, and I went to a sleep specialist.
Oh, wow.
You know, they hook you up into the sleep clinic with all these electrodes and whatever. And he says, look, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just not sleeping enough.
Ah,
But I was feeling so bad that I thought, I'm going to have to do this. And I was super worried. I thought, okay, if I add 2 more hours of sleep a night, when is all this stuff going to get done?
yeah.
And you know what, John? After adding 2 more hours of sleep a night, not only did all of those things get done, I could do more things.
Yes.
Because, of
Yes.
course, I'm working faster and more efficiently with fewer errors.
Yes.
Not that I ever make any errors in my work. And I had the energy and the motivation now just from increasing that self care. So we tell ourselves we don't have time for it. And this becomes a sort of, it feeds into our societal tropes around busy being a mantle of pride, as opposed to saying, let me pause. Now, tactically speaking, because you may not want to jump in with 2 extra hours of sleep right away, would be how do you start your day?
Mm.
Most people start their day right away on their device.
Yeah.
And I tell people you've trained your boss to expect to hear from you at 5 a.m. Start weaning them off of that.
Yeah.
So maybe you start training them to 5:15 a.m. and you use those 15 minutes to do something. Or heck, even if you take a minute to do something else. So just really, really small micro experiments to start to wean yourself first and then train other people of when to expect things from you first thing in the morning.
Mm. That's interesting. You're saying you have to train your boss. I love that concept. I know I worked for an international company one time, and I had two bosses, one in America and one in France.
Oh, wow.
And so the one in France, of course, 6 hours ahead, and so he would load up my inbox. So you go home at the end of the day, everything is somewhat organized, and then before you even get into the office, you look at your email, and there's like 15 emails from the boss in France wanting status updates and everything. And I remember because I like to get up and work out in the morning, but I would look at my phone and it would stress me out because I'm like, oh, I got to take care of this. And so my workouts were, I started skipping workouts, or I'd be thinking about it the whole time. So I learned, like, don't even look at the phone. Just wait until you get to the office. Take care of yourself first. Get in the office, then we can attack all these questions from. He was a bit of a micromanager, by the way, too, which was also adding to my stress. So yeah, yeah,
I'm sure that didn't help. But
yeah,
yeah, that don't even look at the phone now. It's really difficult. And I'm saying all this, and there are days I go, let me just quickly peek
yeah,
at email. And
yeah,
my gym time is done. I'm not gonna get there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, I have the fortunate position where I can afford to not have my work email on my phone.
That's
I
great.
actually
Yeah,
don't even have it on the phone.
yeah, yeah. That's
So,
great.
or if you can shut down your email on your computer the night before, that
Yeah,
that extra step it would take might help you stay healthy in the meantime. And
yeah.
again, let's try it at 30 seconds, not 30 minutes to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think too, I think we have to control, like if we know, like if we know there's somebody that really bothers us, or there's some issue that's really bothering us, and it's going to be, and then even if you just go on and you look to see there's an email from somebody, right, that is going to set you off. Like, to me, I'm going to put that aside until I'm mentally prepared to deal with that issue. Because in other words, I don't jump on it right away. I want to make sure that I'm mentally prepared so that I can handle that issue. And I think that's probably come over time. When I was younger, I would just, okay, we get that one. I'll go, oh, I got to get that one. I got to get that one. Now I'm like, all right, this guy, I know I'm going to deal with a problem when I get this email. So I'm going to wait till 10 o'clock when I've got my schedule free and I can spend some time, with this issue. And I think that helps me keep my emotions in check too. And I think it's a little bit of a mental health thing too. It's like, I don't want to be stressed this morning. I'm going to enjoy my morning. I'm going to plan my morning, and I'm going to deal with this issue when I want to, and my timing. And I think that's helped me a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's taking back control, taking back charge of it.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, maybe it's taking back control. I think that's the feeling I get. Yeah.
We also make up stories about how urgent something is.
Yes. Yes.
If you simply ask your boss, well, when do you need it? Sometimes they will say, I need it yesterday.
Hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, you think they need it yesterday. They actually need it next week.
Yes, yeah. As a boss, that's something I do often is if it's not a rush, I will literally
You
say
clarify.
this is not a rush. So if a couple days, it's not a rush. Or I'll say this is pretty urgent. I really need it by by Tuesday or something. But I'm very careful to let my employees know when it's critical or not, and that's helpful. But a lot of times, as you said, bosses don't often give you context, right? And you're like, oh, drop everything. The boss needs something, right? And maybe it wasn't a rush. Maybe it wasn't important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So asking that question can be helpful. Um, yeah. So one of the things that we talked about, and you say that you talk about in this book, and I think it's kind of important, is how to deal with you come into a new management role, you get promoted, you're trying to do the best you can, you're under a lot of pressure, and sometimes you can lose your why, like why
Mm.
you got into it, what you were motivated for,
Mm.
getting into in the role in the first place. How can we reconnect with that,
Mm.
and to really make sure that we're doing what we've been put on earth to do and what we love doing, even in the times where we're getting a lot of pressure to perform? How do we kind of reconnect with that?
What a great question, John. I developed a tool called a joy line. It's very simple and yet has some profound insights for my clients because I noticed something interesting. What I noticed is that many of my clients north of, say, the age of 45, so it might not be there yet for your listeners, but on the horizon, they go, okay, I've got the job, I've got the promotion, I've got the paycheck. Is this all there is to life?
Mm.
And they suddenly feel empty. So the joy line is a line, it's simply a line. And in that line, one side of the line are things in your life that, and like about 10 things that have sucked the joy out of you.
Ah.
And on the other side of the line are the things that have given you the deepest joy.
Mm.
And don't just think work, think life. Throughout your life, it could be work, it could be home, it could be friends, it could be some creative outlet, whatever it is, list out the high joy, low joy moments in your life. First, just doing the exercise, and if you stopped right there, people find it helpful to go, oh, I need to seek more of those kind of things. If you want to go deeper, since this is deep leadership that we're talking about, you start to craft out what's common, what's a thread to these things. When, like we talked about taking back control. Maybe the things that are the absolute bottom of the pit for me are where I had absolutely no control.
Mm.
Or maybe it's when I work with these kind of people or on these kind of things. So once we start to see that common thread, it's much easier for us to then architect our work, our life, our time towards that bigger why.
Mm.
And to understand what's common to these that lights me up or doesn't is so related to why I do what I do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that to your point, we get busy and we don't do things like this, right? And I think then it just sort of piles on, right? And we get stressed and we're under pressure and we get stressed. But I think we have to take those moments and sort of do a self, basically it's an assessment, right? It's kind of like a thinking about, okay, why am what I love the joy line, what is driving me crazy right now and what I do, right? And what's bringing me the most joy, what is the stuff that I'm absolutely fired up about every day. And I think, but you got to take the time to do that. You have to have that quiet moment. You've got to walk away from the emails and the phone calls and the day to day, just to have those quiet moments to reflect, right? I mean, you can't just be gung ho all the time.
Well, two things, John, there. One is you don't have to do it all in one sitting. So
Ah.
you could potentially just have a piece of paper, and as you think about it over the course of a day and over the course of a few weeks, you start to accrue and curate those items. The
Yes.
second thing is crazy in the moment versus lack of joy in the long term. There are things that we all have where we go, oh, what was I thinking? Why did I sign up to do this? This is so stressful, whatever. But when you're looking back, would you go back and do it again? And if
Yeah.
the answer is yes, then that's high joy, not low joy. So
Okay,
that's
I
a
get it.
key distinction there.
Yeah, yeah. like writing a book. It's a lot of stress. I mean, I would do it again, but it's a lot when you're in the moment. It's you're going
It,
through and so
yes, yes,
yeah, I would do it again, but it's a lot of stress. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. A lot of deadlines. Well, this has been fantastic. So if every listener just took one habit or an idea from this book called You're the Boss,
Mm.
that would make them a better leader, what would it be?
Mm. One habit. Well, I'm a minimalist because I know that people get busy and they don't do anything. So the one habit I would choose is to shut up. Here's what I mean by that is as a boss, don't be the first or the second person to speak. Be the third. Now, people sometimes take that literally. I don't mean, you might need to jump in and frame the meeting and set parameters and what success looks like. But then when it comes to ideas and brainstorming and discussion, take notes, zip your mouth, and do that one meeting a day, not more than that, and see what happens. It reduces those sole provider tendencies we talked about. It gives others an opportunity because once you have your idea out there, nobody's going to want to disagree with it. So shut up once a day.
I love that advice. I love that advice because I know that our presence, like as a leader, our presence change things and our words change things, right? And so sometimes we just need to pause, let others speak. Don't control every conversation, and you might be surprised at what you're hearing. And I love the idea that then it helps you get out of that sole provider mentality as well, too. That's fantastic advice. Listeners, you heard that. What do you need to do it better as a leader? You need to shut up. Shut up and listen. Take good notes. I love it. That's so powerful. Such great advice. Well, this has been fantastic. How can our listeners find out more about you and this new book?
Thanks for asking, John. Listeners can go to my website, sabinanawaz.com. There's a book section where the book is available for order wherever books are found. And once you buy You're the Boss, the website also has free guides, templates, book club discussion questions, all sorts of resources that you can download.
Well, fantastic. We're going to put links in the show notes for all of these resources. And again, listeners, this book is called You're the Boss. And it's really, I mean, we've really touched on just a little bit of it, but it's really eye-opening. It's going to really help you become a better boss. And we, of course, on this podcast, that's all about that. So we definitely want you to pick that book up, and the links here in the show notes. Yeah.
One other thing, John, they could subscribe to my Substack. It's called Pressure Proof, because then it extends beyond the book on a couple times a month on how to become pressure proof. Never going to be pressure free. How can you become pressure proof?
I love that. We'll also put that link in the show notes as well. Becoming pressure proof. I love that as a former submariner. I can tell you, I really appreciate that message. We had to be pressure proof when we were in the Navy, so I certainly appreciate that message. So we'll have a link to that Substack as well. And again, this stuff is going to help you become a better leader. So I encourage you to follow the links. And if you have a question for Sabina, reach out to her, right? And on her website, reach out to her, and she can answer any questions you might have. But get the book. It'll make you a better boss, and that's what it's all about. So, Sabina, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your expertise and all the insights you shared from the years that you've spent with leaders. I think you've given us some really good things to think about and a lot of insight into the way typically managers fail and they make mistakes. And you've given us a lot to think about. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, that is it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.